Welcome, everybody, to the new episode of the Mythopedia podcast. My name is Twan, also known as iKipsate. And today, I'm not alone, obviously. My guest, Henk, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself, Henk?
Hello, my name is Henk. I played professional League of Legends for about 4 years under the name Advienne, and now I've taken a break and I'm looking for coaching opportunities.
Well, thank you. Once again, welcome. And as you just mentioned, you were a professional League of Legends player. Can you tell us something about the path you took to where you start to the professional level? Because you mentioned 4 years of play.
Yeah.
That came from somewhere, I guess.
Well, it's actually really simple. Basically, I played the game a lot, and I at some point I got. So I was always around like a master player, but my computer was really bad. And then one summer I decided I'm gonna work, buy myself a new computer, and see how far I get. And that's what I did. I worked all summer. I bought a new good computer, and then I hit Challenger. I think I hit top 5 at the time at my peak. And yeah, at that point, I was, I guess, in sight, and some teams saw that I was good and they wanted to try me out. And so I did some tryouts, and then I got signed by my first team, which was big at the time.
Okay, so you started playing just for yourself at home. You mentioned the rank master. Maybe people that are listening don't know like the ranks. How high would you say master is?
Um, well, I would say that master for a casual player would be very high. I think it would be around, I don't know, if you're a master, you can confidently say that you're, compared to other people, you're pretty decent at the game. But if you would compare it with the professional level, it's not even close to being good enough to play at the highest level. So it's so the skill level, it ranks up quite a lot, and the higher you get, the better you need to be, exponentially, kind of.
Yeah.
So master's really good for most players, but professional players will be saying that master players aren't very good.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. All right. So you just started playing. You reached master. Then you decided, oh man, I need a new computer, so I got to work for it. And then you start even getting better because of the new computer. Because of why did the computer change your level? How can that even impact you?
Well, I was playing on a computer that would drop down to like 10 frames per second every team fight, so I wouldn't be able to play the game past 15 minutes, basically. And I was also playing on a laptop screen, which is 60 hertz. And I changed to a normal screen that was 144 hertz, and that is a big game changer. So I went from being able to see nothing, basically, to seeing everything and seeing it faster and smoother, and I think that made a big difference. Yeah.
So you actually started to see what you were doing in game.
Yeah, no. There was a point where I would play a team fight and I would literally just press my buttons and then I would not see anything that would happen. So I just had to pray that the first round of buttons was enough, and then that was it. Yeah.
Okay. So and from that point you started even more improving, as you said. You started reaching challenger and rank 5 in the ladder. But at what point you noticed from esports teams they noticed you as a player? How did they even reach to you?
I think my first team was because so back in the day you could still play together in higher ranks. Now they changed it so that if you're a master or above, you cannot play with a dual queue partner anymore. But at the time you could, and so I would often, people that I enjoyed playing with, I would add them and play together, and we'd go on Discord sometimes. So I have like some friends, I guess, from that time, and I believe it was Bean, who's now playing in the Spanish league, that I played with at the time, and Big just sold Labrov. And so they had a spot mid-split, and he said, hey, you want to try out for this team? And that's kind of how I got known. But a lot of times, there's also players that get just scouted from the ladder.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, it was more kind of luck then, because you knew people from within the game, and they had contacts within esports organizations, or
Yeah, but I would say I also before that I also had some tryouts for other teams. That in the end I think I didn't get into, partially because I was really new and there were some residency issues. But those teams all scouted me just from the ladder, so
okay.
the
Yeah.
ladder
Okay.
usually is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So and then you came to big. It's Berlin gaming, something like that, right?
Berlin International Gaming. Yeah.
International gaming. I forgot that. And okay, so you started playing at the competitive level, from playing solo queue just for yourself to the next level competitive gaming. How would you describe that step?
I don't know. I didn't feel like it was gigantic when I was playing scrims. I mean, I was definitely a rough around the edges player at the time, but I still felt like I was playing the same game. It was just when there was an official match and there was
Yeah,
pressure, the game felt a little different because suddenly you wouldn't feel comfortable taking, let's say, a 60% chance play. Even though on paper that's a good, good odds to take. If 60% chance you can win and you do it all the time, then there's a good chance you're gonna win the game. But when there's stress and pressure, maybe that's not enough, and it changes the way a lot of people play the game, changes the way usually you play yourself. And
yeah,
yeah, I think that was a big challenge to overcome. Like, how do I understand the game to the point where I wouldn't need to take the 60% anymore to win, where I would
yeah.
just take 100%. And that was something I was always kind of struggling with in my mind. Like, how should I approach this? I really overthought it. I think now I would tell myself, like, hey, just play the game. It's fine if you take like risky plays because you can do it 10 times over. And if you keep playing good, you're going to win anyways. But at the time, I wasn't so confident if I would win anyways. And so I would always try to go for the 100% plays because then I would have a 100% chance of winning.
And that's
Um,
because you like made your debut at competitive gaming. You didn't like took the pressure that well, and that's why you didn't want to take the risk, at least, or take the
yeah,
players.
I mean, I'm a perfectionist, and I think the perfectionism um, just wanted to keep control over things.
Hmm.
When I believe in league, just like in football, you sometimes have to let the control go to play better.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
makes sense.
yeah, I think that is something I personally struggled with. I'm not sure if a lot of players struggle with that. I think there's some players that don't overthink this and just play the game just like they always have.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was for me a big change.
Okay. Okay. So you started at big in Berlin. For how long time did you play there? Was it like one split or a year or?
No, I just played there one split. I basically played only one split per team for my entire career.
Okay, and you played 4 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you kind of had like 8 or 9 teams then, maybe.
Let me see. So I had big, then I went to Excel Academy, then I went to Excel main team, then I guess set out a split on the bench on Excel main team. Then I went to Giants.
Mhm.
Then from Giants I went to FNATIC Academy, then I went to FNATIC, and then I went to Koi. So I don't know, I would say eight, maybe seven if you yeah, maybe
Yeah.
seven
Okay.
teams.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then yeah.
All right. Um, and you was a professional player. Like you played on daily basis League of Legends for your job, for your living. And
Yeah.
you played at the highest European stage, the LEC. And for people who don't know like the LEC, or how can you explain what is the LEC?
The LEC is an abbreviation of the League European Championships, and it's just a league where the best European teams and the best European players face off against each other for not only a chance to win the league, obviously, but also a chance to qualify at the end of the year for the World Championships, where you get to play against international teams, which will be American teams, Chinese teams, Korean teams, and some teams from other wildcard regions, like I believe it's Brazil and and Japanese league as well.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. So, um, it is your full time job then. At least it was your full time job.
Yeah.
And if we look at a day then, like or even a week, what does it look like to be a professional League of Legends player for a full time job?
Well, you play the game a lot.
What is a
But yeah,
lot?
basically, let's say I would wake up at 9 or 10. Then I would get up, um, do all the standard stuff of getting up, shower, brush my teeth. Then I would just get a coffee somewhere, get some food. I would go into the office an hour later, basically. Then I would start playing solo queue until about 1, I believe, 1 or 2, depending on what the time the scrims start. Then we would have scrims for usually a block of 3 games, then a pause, then a block of 3 games. After every game, we would review with the team. So we would talk about what went wrong, what should we do, if the draft's good, everything basically that we need to talk about. And then we would go into a different game. So basically, we would play 3 games. That was the format at the time, or at least last year. But there were also some formats that you would just play 5 without a break. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, you would play 3 games. You would take a break of about half an hour, sometimes an hour. Then you could talk a bit about the game or just relax or play a solo queue, depending on what you wanted. Then you would play 3 more. Same thing, reviews, everything. Then we would have dinner with the team and we'd play again on the solo ranking pretty much the entire night. Then you would basically have free time. I would go to the gym sometimes. But yeah, you would have free time so you could maybe play something else, but most players would just play the game as well. You just play the game, and then you would go to bed, and then the whole day starts again. And
And that's
yeah,
every day of the week.
every day of the week except for we had one off day um, after our official matches, and that you could fill in by yourself. So I went bouldering, I went to do some sports, or
Nice.
I would just play the game. It depends. I would
Yeah,
like
fair.
to I like to take a break a bit because it helped me refocus. But in my early days, I would definitely play more League of Legends then as well. So I just
Mhm.
play the game the whole day. Yeah.
And the match days, how much match days do you have in a week? Is it just one or?
So in LEC last schedule we had 3 per week, and then it would be a short time. I also played in competitions where the format was 2 times a week. And yeah, the game days are a little different. You don't scrim because people don't want to exhaust themselves before the game. Although
Makes
I
sense.
wasn't a big fan of that. I think it could have been good to scrim a bit, but also if you lose the scrims and then play official matches, it could mess with some players' heads. So
And what about
most of
like
the time,
warm up games or something like that?
yeah, we did sometimes play warm-up games, but there's always in a team some players that are for it, some players that are against it.
Yeah,
Again, if
okay.
you warm up, you can get fake data because you don't play against a good enough opponent. So you might think
Mhm.
something's really good, but then you don't. You play against a guy that doesn't punish it well, and then you have to play a match against the guy who does. Um, Also, players that would lose a lane that would be easy to win or would play with less focus than they would in an official match. It would maybe affect their confidence. So it was a
Yeah.
touchy subject in many teams, and so there was a lot of tryouting with it, like trying out if we like it, but also a lot of times there were no warm-ups.
Yeah, okay, it makes sense. So basically you just play the game. You get to eat, you go to the gym or whatever, or play even more game, and you go to bed, and you have like 3 match days, 1 day
Yeah,
off, and 3 days of full blocks of scrimming and just playing solo queue then. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And
There's no room for a personal life
no.
basically. Once you're during the season, you're just playing. You can have a personal life outside of the season, then you have more free time, so to say. But if you want to be the best, you're also playing the game the whole time then,
Yeah, that makes
because
sense.
yeah,
Like
you need to.
if you look at soccer, like players are always like maybe 1 or 2 weeks vacation, but then also even if there's a summer break, working on their bodies. Like you have
Yeah,
to be training if you want to be the best. So that kind of makes sense.
yeah.
Um, and you mentioned for playing for 4 years professional League of Legends. And you mentioned going to the office. Did you play from home, or what does that look like as a professional player?
So There are some teams, so there's basically two ways of constructing a team environment. One is the gamer house. That's what they call it. Basically, they have a house. Everyone has a room in the house. In the house, there's one room where everyone trains, has their computers in place, and yeah, you would just live in that house with everyone, and that would be the construction.
And
Um,
that house is owned by the esports team.
Usually, yeah,
Yeah.
owned or
Okay.
rented at least.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Fair. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's in use by the esports team, and yeah, the pros of that would be you'd be a lot closer to the team. Even on free time, you'd be hanging out with everyone, and yeah, you'd have a lot of time to chat with your team, but also you would not have a lot of personal space.
Yeah. Can
Personally, I didn't
imagine.
mind that. I liked being around my teammates the whole time. It was really fun, especially if I could got a good connection with them. But there are also teams that have a different construction, which is having apartments and an office. I think nowadays a lot of LEC teams have this construction um, because people just get to have a little bit more personal space.
Yeah.
And yeah, people will just have an apartment. Often that is arranged for by the team. Some players have their own apartments in Berlin, but usually it's arranged by the team. And yeah, you just go to the office every day.
Yeah. And the LSC stage is in Berlin, so all the
Yeah.
LSC teams do have an office in Berlin.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. Yeah.
All right. And the stage, like we just said, is in Berlin. And there's a crowd in it, right? And you
Minimal.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, fair. And you actually play on the stage, but it's live streamed on just Twitch, I guess.
Yeah.
And there are like 50, 60, 70,000 people watching you. What's that like as a player?
Well, I would say the LEC stage itself wasn't too daunting. I never really felt comfortable playing there. I don't know why. I have my suspicions as to why, but it's a long story. Either way, it's just a different environment. You're used to sitting behind your computer. You're used to your own desk height. You're used to your own chair height. You're used to having your, I don't know, your arms in a certain way. And when you change environment, that is different. So that always brings an extra edge to
Yeah,
playing. Um, yeah, playing with people watching you is always as scary as you make it out to be. If you really feel like you are not at your peak and you're stressed that everyone's gonna see you for what you are, like not good enough, then it can be very daunting. If you feel really comfortable and confident, then it can just be you're in the game. You don't notice anyone
yeah.
watching. You maybe hear the crowd a little bit, but if you're on your game, you're feeling confident, it doesn't matter that much.
All right, okay. And playing in front of a crowd makes that feel like playing the game more special for you, or doesn't even matter?
I mean, if it's a big crowd, a lot of the times, so I had games where I would play in Spain, for example, in big
Hmm.
crowds, and the noise cancellation wouldn't be the best, and sometimes you couldn't hear your teammates as well, so the game would be much different. Like you'd have to ping more, or you'd have to shout, otherwise people wouldn't hear you, or you wouldn't hear the game sounds as much. Um, so
Okay,
that changed a
yeah,
lot. But other than that, it's really nice to have a crowd if you're winning and you feel the buzz if you're winning a team fight, but
yeah,
also if you lose a team fight, you suddenly hear the crowd chanting for the other team and it's quiet and it feels bad.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it just adds a weird, I don't know, extra dynamic, I guess.
Can it give you also a boost during the game?
Oh, definitely. If you're doing
Yeah.
well and people recognize that and they're shouting, then that's obviously amazing and you get more confidence and you start
Okay.
playing better. Yeah.
All right. Okay, that's cool. Um, and you mentioned like it was a former League of Legends player, a professional League of Legends player, and you recently retired as a player at the end of 2023.
Uh-huh.
Um, and like we just counted like you've played for like 7 or 8 teams probably. Um, and what is in your opinion like the bare minimum every esports organization offered you in terms of like secondary aid? So everything outside of salary. What should be the bare minimum in your opinion?
I mean, so when I was playing fully professional, I think the bare minimum was housing with your own room, food every day that you're playing, and providing, basic things like a computer in that place. I think that's just the bare minimum: food, housing, and being able to play the game.
Okay, fair. Yeah.
Um, I think for teams that weren't, so there's some teams that aren't remote or that aren't on the location that they are remote. Then it's just the salary and providing structure so you can practice with the team. But yeah, if you're a fully professional team and you're at the location with the whole team, then the least you can provide is housing and food. No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Um, and looking back at your career for like the 4 years you played League of Legends, um, what are for you as personally your highlights in your career? Can you point out a few?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I would like the one highlight was that we went to the Masters finals with Excel Academy back then. I think that was such a great group of people that I would still consider my friends to this day, and I know we had such a good vibe there. Um, so that was
With
definitely.
who did you play with then?
I played at the time with Orome, Hatrix, Marcoon, and Deadly. And we had Coach Swiffer, who's also now at SK. But yeah, we just had a really good team environment, I think, and that was really nice. Was also one of my first big splits, and then we made it to E-Masters finals, so that was really really nice. But yeah, I think I had like many different highlights. I love changing scenery. I love being in different places. I love being in Spain. I love being in London, Berlin. It was a big highlight for me to be able to play for FNATIC, which had such a big fan base, and um, there's a camera crew following you every day to record what we're doing. I also really loved being able to represent Koi. I don't know. I think everything was a highlight in a way, and everything was had some downfalls in a way, I guess.
Yeah. And you just mentioned like the camera crew following you all day long. Does that impact you as a person, or can you just like ignore the cameras following you and just be you? Or
You can mostly ignore it, I think. I mean, it's weird, especially if you get self-conscious about it, or you get like obviously a lot of people watching and people giving negative comments on the YouTube and stuff like that. If you start looking into that and getting affected by that, then it definitely can change something. But I really tried to just ignore it and just, I don't know, I just did the same thing as I would always do, as if the cameras weren't there. Just sometimes a guy with a camera would walk by.
okay, fair. I mean, I can imagine that like players that aren't that confident about himself can
Yeah.
really be affected by the fact there's someone just following you with a camera like all day in your face, and then even when you start reading the comments on YouTube or wherever, it can actually harm you not only as a player but maybe also as a person. But
Yeah.
did that happen in your like one of your teams, maybe like something like that?
I don't think so. I also think the Fnatic people do an incredibly good job at framing things in a nice way and not putting you in a bad spot. And yeah, no, I had only positive things from the videos and from
Mm.
the staff there. So I think in theory it could affect something, but I think they're handling that very carefully, so it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned some heights in your career. But are there also some like low points? You're like, okay, no, at that point, this happened, and then I really felt like down. I didn't even know if I wanted to play anymore or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had many down points as well. I think when I got replaced for Mickey X,
Mm.
for me, kind of completely out of nowhere, um, because it was literally just another scrim week, and I got asked like, Hank, can we have a chat? And I was like, sure, yeah. I had a good relationship with everyone, and I said, hey, am I in trouble? Laughingly, and he said, well, you're probably not gonna like it. And then I just, yeah, my
Okay.
spot was gone out of nowhere when I wasn't really underperforming. Obviously, player like Mickey X, it makes sense to take a player like that. But yeah, it was definitely a down point, and I felt like I wasn't being appreciated, and I also felt like on a personal level, the way it was handled wasn't very nice. I was suddenly
Mm.
put outside of the scrim room when all the teammates were my friends. I lost access to all the scrims, so I couldn't even watch how Mickey played to see if I could improve. And I felt like I was kind of being ignored on a personal level. I was just put in a back room in the office and just that's it, um, which I didn't like so much. So that was definitely a
Yeah.
low point. It definitely lost a lot of confidence there because I thought I was doing well, and then suddenly I was just gone from the
Yeah.
LEC.
Did they
Um,
ever came back to you about that situation?
no, I mean I think they felt that they were in their right mind. I mean the change made sense again
Mm.
on a professional level. If you can get players like Mickey X, you should just do it. Um, but on a personal level, for me it wasn't. It was quite a blow. So yeah, that was definitely a low point. I think when
Yeah.
I was in Fnatic, not making it far into the playoffs where we almost killed the Nexus, but just about lost to Mad. And then also in Koi where we were pretty much set for the season finals, but then Excel out of nowhere made like a miracle run and basically to
Yeah.
perfection knocked us out of the season finals.
Yeah.
Um, and both those situations, like the failure after failure, really made me feel like, what am I still doing here if I can't win? And I'm on all these
Mm.
good teams and I can't make it. And so, yeah, I definitely after losing again with Koi, I definitely got a bit burned out. And that's why that was a big part of the reason why I at least announced my retirement for now or my change to coach for now. And I just didn't feel like playing the game. I didn't have the confidence anymore.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that was definitely those were definitely low blows.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it went up and down in my career. Obviously, promoting to main teams in Excel and Fnatic where it was amazing, but also at some points where I was like, yeah, I feel a bit like unlucky in this situation.
Yeah. I can imagine, but like you're still like one of the three Dutch players. I think. I mean, I think there were three
I think
people
so.
that made it to the LEC stage. It's Markoon, Fabivan, and you, I guess.
Yeah, I think there was like some older ones as well back in the day, but I wouldn't know.
Okay. Yeah. Me neither, to be honest. But and if you look at like esports in general, like the esports scene worldwide is really big. And if you look to the development of esports in general, like maybe especially in the Benelux scene, because like that's close to home. And if you look to esports, do you believe that esports belongs to the category of top level sports?
Mm, well, I think in terms of the time and effort the athletes put in and the amount of people watching it, it definitely should be at least put in the same row as sports. You could argue that it isn't a real sport in terms of physicality and things like that, but in terms of effort, level of competitivity, the amount of people watching it, I think it should be taken as seriously as a sport.
Yeah, and if you look at, I mean, you just mentioned the like sports is obviously you're always like busy with your body, and trying to push your body as far as you can, like basically in all sports. Um, but to play as a professional esporter in whatever game, you have to be physically really well as well, if I'm correct, right? Because it
Well,
helps you to get your mindset at the right at the right point.
well, I wouldn't say you have to be. I think the difference is that if you're a professional footballer and you're, let's say, 20 kilos too heavy, then it's going to be hard for you to be a professional footballer. I think when a professional gamer, you can be 20 kilos too much and it will be fine. But definitely, without a doubt, healthy body, healthy mind. And if you make the effort of sleeping well, doing exercise, and being physically in shape, it will definitely help you with stress management. It helps you with focusing for a long time throughout the day, and it helps you with being more clear-headed, for sure.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
yeah, I wouldn't say it's like a necessary thing, but yeah, if you're a professional athlete, you need to do everything you can to be the best, and that includes being physically healthy, in my
yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too, to be honest. But yeah. And if like we know what the esports scene is, right? We know what the esports scene is look like because like we're both in it. Um, how would you describe what is esports like to a parent of a child with ambitions in the esports scene? Like a child is which is gaming like every day with you know, I'm good at the game and I have ambitions to be an esporter, so I need to game. How would you describe to explain to like a layperson what is esports?
Well, I think it's quite simple. It's a game that people play, and a lot of people play it. So at some point, the people that play it want to watch the best kind of players play it, and they watch it. And so that became esports. It's the same thing, in my opinion, as how football got big. Football is also just a game of people kicking a football. And at some point, a lot of people played it, so they wanted to see the
Mhm.
best of the best of the best play it and see, uh, the highest level of talent coming together, playing all against each other. And with esports, the same thing. There's different games, just like in sports, there's different games. Just there's like football and basketball. In esports, there's also many, many different games, and it's just, you know, who can be the best, and people want to watch it.
Yeah, and like I've been talking to a lot of parents and children like in our area.
Uh-huh.
And the most common thing I hear from them is, but it's a game and you're sitting on a desk behind your computer just watching at a screen. Why would I support my child to even game more and get better in the game? Why don't you go outside?
Well, I think if the child just wants to play the game and literally drop everything around him for that, I think as a parent that's not necessarily something you should support. Um, but you should support a healthy level of grinding. So playing the game a lot, but combined with, some physical exercise, combined with perhaps a social life, be it online, preferably offline, obviously, but
Hmm.
an online social life is at least something.
Yeah,
But I think that the most important thing when it comes to parents being afraid of gaming addiction is that it's an addiction when it impacts your life negatively, and it isn't when it doesn't. And so, yeah, if you're just playing the game with a certain goal, but you ruin everything for it, then obviously you need to be a bit careful. Um, but at least the parents should be aware that the child is not working towards nothing. There is a goal in mind and it's realistic, but they should help the child try to work towards that goal while also keeping other things in life in check. Just
yeah,
like when you're a football player and all you would do is put your earphones in and football all day and ruin your schooling and maybe ruin your body because you're playing too much and not talk to anyone because so you don't have a social life. That
yeah.
would also not be healthy and people would also not support that.
That
So
makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's a real thing and people should treat it as such, but it shouldn't be so black and white of like, okay, if it's a real thing, I let my child play 24/7, because it's also not going to make the child better, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And if you
yeah.
could give an advice then to the parents, like you said, support your child in a healthy way.
Uh-huh.
What would be an advice from your side to like the parents from childs or even the child self that are willing to be an esporter? What would be your advice to them? How can you support your child?
I think it's important to communicate. Ask your child, hey, what are you working towards? What do you need to reach that? And if he's also willing to do things outside of the game to progress himself in the game. And so if you start understanding, like, okay, hey, my child is maybe at this level of play, he wants to reach that level of play, um, then you can start thinking together on how to reach that in a healthy way.
Yeah,
You could set boundaries like, hey, you can play this much, but I want you to do maybe, if you're really not doing anything, you could say, I want you to do this exercise, or I want you to maybe do this job, or I want you to at least keep your school on track. And
yeah.
yeah,
So
basically,
basically, it starts with understanding.
Yes,
talk
I
with
think
your
it's very
child,
important.
understanding what they are willing to achieve and why are they like gaming that much. So talk with
Yeah,
them instead of pushing them away from the computer, right?
yeah, yeah, and I think that is like there's many ranges this can go. Obviously, there's cases where children want to be a professional player, but they're nowhere near the professional level. Obviously, it's the same as in football. If if you are not already playing in the top, then it's no point in spending your whole life on football. It it sounds harsh, but that's just reality. And then you need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to also make sure that your schooling is in check, your social life's in check, because it's just not worth to drop everything for it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if a player's close, then it makes more sense to maybe drop some things. But yeah,
And
most
if
important
you
thing is make sure you're aware of what's going on.
Yeah, and if you look back to you to your own like situation, did you get supported by your parents, or how did they support you in the way to help you to become the professional player you were?
Oh no, my parents didn't. I come from a very strong sports background. I come from the kind of parents that would be like, okay, you have sports, but you're suddenly stopping to do all of sports to play more games. It feels like you're wasting your life away. And yeah, no, I think my parents always say that I got my achievement despite them, not thanks to them. And yeah, I mean they obviously didn't understand it. I was too embarrassed to admit that I wanted to go professional, so I just didn't tell them because I knew they would, I don't know, make fun of me in that sense. And so yeah, I was never taken serious in that sense.
Do you regret
Um
not telling your dream?
no, I know how they would have reacted, and I think it would have made it harder for me.
Okay,
Um I
but
think from yeah.
okay, and like if you are like listening now and you are having a dream of getting an esporter in League of Legends or whatever game, would you tell them to share their dream with their parents? Like we just talked about how can you as a parent support your child, but you said no, I didn't want to tell them.
Yeah, no, I think in general you probably should, and you should try to show examples. Nowadays, there's way better examples of
Mm.
documentaries, of YouTube videos to really show what's going on and how real it is. At the time, it was not as much and it wasn't as big. Um, but yeah, if your parents are open for that kind of thing, definitely like let them know if you have these passions. It's very important for both sides to communicate effectively. Otherwise, things just go wrong.
Yeah, yeah, and if you then look to like someone aspiring to be the professional player, do you have any do's and don'ts for them?
Um, yeah, do is get individually as good as you can. Try to get as high on the ladder, on the ranking, on a personal level as you can. Try to expand your mind when it comes to understanding the game. So don't only grind the game, but also do things outside of the game. Exercise, think about different things, look at different perspectives from the game. Basically, increase your mental reach because I think that's going to make you better at the game, not so much just grinding it every day. At least in the game I play in League of Legends, that is very important. I think there's some games that are more grindy, more mechanical, but in League of Legends, you need to be understanding everything, and you can only do that if you actually take the time to start looking at things from different perspectives rather than your own the whole time. So that's definitely a do. I think a don't is focus too much on joining lower tier teams and then trying to grind through the ranks. I think it's a mistake a lot of players make. I think playing for lower tier teams, while it's nice to get the social aspect and it's really fun to compete, it can make you worse in ways because there's a lot of lower level players around there and you can learn things from them that are wrong. And
Hmm.
so it's better if you're already going into the game being good and then joining teams with good people that
Yeah,
teach you new things rather than getting taught the wrong things.
and
Um,
if you look at then like if you are playing in a lower tier team, do you think the results you get with that team can impact you as a player, or at least the way you look like as a player?
I think no. I mean, you can play through ERLs and get high new monsters and maybe get recognized, but I think most of the scene um, will be looking at your solo queue. And if you're really good at solo queue and you're stomping every game, but you're playing in, I don't know, uh, third league, Dutch league, and your team is 0-10, it doesn't matter. If you are really high on the ladder, your win rate's good. People are like, "Oh, who's this kid? He keeps winning his lane. He's good, and
Yeah.
he doesn't type negatively." Then you will get scouted no matter what.
Okay. And so basically you said just keep playing solo queue if you want to reach a certain like level of competitive play. But are there any other ways to like maybe reach out to teams or former players or coaches to like improve the chance that you're getting scouted? Or would you just like don't do that because people can then just walk away from you because you're like hinting towards them?
Well, I think you can always throw out messages like, "Hey, I'm this player. These are my credentials. I want to play for XYZ team." You can always do that. I don't think it will ever hurt. What also helps is when you're playing with people on the solo ranking, add them, say, "Hey man, we'll play." Just keeping a sort of network
Mm.
definitely helps. Um, in the same way, don't go into every game and start insulting people. This happens a lot. It's normal to get emotional over the game, but it doesn't help you because certain players won't want you in their team anymore if you are
Mhm.
too emotional every game. Um, Even if it would never reflect how you behave in a team.
Yeah.
Just There's just a don't. I think other than that, in the end, what matters most is your skill level. And if you are not polishing your skill level, then you can try in a lot of teams and you can maybe get good there. But in the end, even if you're joining certain teams, you would still want to focus a lot on yourself
Yeah.
because your personal skill level is just the most important thing to go up.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And you just mentioned at the start your first team was big, like in Berlin, so not in the Benelux region. So you never played in the Benelux region like competitively, right?
Yeah.
And you've came back like 3 months ago to actually to home to the Benelux region. Um, and you've seen something from the region, at least I guess, and maybe you followed it during your time abroad. But if you look at the Benelux region right now, with your experience, are there any things like you miss within the competitive Benelux League of Legends scene, or like are there any things you'd like to improve to the scene?
The only thing I would want to add really is to add some sort of character to like a sort of personal character. Let's say an influencer that's involved. Um, Maybe more like personal memes. Maybe some storylines that are more known to people. I think that is also what's thriving in other regions.
Mm,
In Spain, people watch because I don't know there's strong personalities and there's influencers and they're all watching. Um, at least it's the same thing. In France, it's the
yeah.
same thing. In Germany, it's the same thing. I think that's what maybe we're missing a little bit in the Netherlands. Is that I don't know? Maybe you have these narratives with these kind of influencers or streamers or old players that maybe bring some energy. That's what I would
And
like. Yeah.
that's then to like organizations, or is it like to the competition in general, like to the competition host,
I mean,
or how would you see it?
I don't care to be honest who does it. I
Mm,
think it could come from the organizations. It could come from the teams. I don't think it matters. It could even be literally just a player in the team that suddenly has a big brand. But yeah, I think that just in general, someone that would spice it up and would make people from the Benelux be like, "Oh wow, I'm gonna watch because this is going on, like this battle."
mhm, mhm.
Kind of to the point where it's like I don't really care about the game, but I want to see this battle. I think
Yeah.
that's something that would be ideal.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for everyone listening, take your notes. um. All right. Now you just retired as a player, like for like 3 or 4 months now. And you kind of hinted to your future plans already at the start of the podcast. Can you tell us something about your future plans as like maybe in the competitive scene or even without the esports scene? Do you have any points set for yourself?
Well, I want to be doing some coaching, where I can. I'm also looking to, if I can't find anything, just go back to university and just coach online. But yeah, if I can join an LEC team, to start coaching, that is something I would do. Otherwise, I would, yeah, I'm doing online coaching. I'm trying to help out also in the Dutch scene when it comes to people that want to improve to League of Legends.
How can people reach you?
And people can reach me on my Twitter at Advienne1. And it's also good on my Instagram at Advienne1 is the same thing. Basically, you can reach me anywhere you want to reach me. And yeah, I'm helping out people when it comes to League of Legends, both online and hopefully at some point offline. And yeah, other than that, I'm streaming a little bit on Twitch at /Advienne, and that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned maybe like willing to start as a coach, maybe LEC. Is there any like dream team you'd like to coach for?
Um, I wouldn't say there's a dream team I would like to coach for. Obviously, like in a perfect world, I'd like to join G2 to see what's going on, and I would learn a lot from the players there. But other than that, I just want a chance to show that I think I really understand the game at a high level, and I can even make, LEC players get better at their respective roles, because I think I just understand the game really well, and I would just want an opportunity to prove that to an environment.
So if you can like call like maybe 3 quick wins to any League of Legends player, how can they improve themselves really quickly, like within 3 things? So if you do this in every game, or at least try to do them in your game, you will improve.
Yeah, I mean, I think number one is having a replay system. There's multiple programs that you can use. I myself use Outplayed by Overwolf, which allows you to basically look over everything in the game after the game. And so if every game and there was a play that didn't go well, that you felt like wasn't good, just look it back, see what you could have done better. If you would play it perfectly, how would it have looked? And yeah, basically internalize every time how you could have played something, and in the end, you will just get better and more efficient. Secondly, I think it's really important to keep watching content of people that are smarter than you at the game. Keep feeding yourself with different perspectives and different information. In the end, you don't have to be the best at anything. You just have to be the best at copying what other people are the best at. So if you copy 20 things that other people are the best at, and all the other people are just the best at one, then you're better than them. And so, yeah, open yourself up to a different perspective. Open yourself up to different perspective also on different roles. If you're playing one role, learn suddenly another role, so you get to see how it actually feels to play from that perspective, and how you can help your team if you're on the other side of the perspective. And thirdly, I think push yourself to your mechanical limits. So really try to click as fast as you can, really try to play with the enemies, try to dodge spells in their face, predict what they're going to do and try to sidestep it, and really see how far you can push yourself mechanically with your mouse, how much you can handle. And if you keep pushing that limit, then you'll get way more, your eye-hand coordination with your mouse will get way better, and then once you need it, you'll actually be able to, play scenarios correctly.
All right. And does it matter on what like rank you're playing right now to use these tips?
No, I think these tips work for every rank. I think there's players even in Challenger or below, like Grandmaster, Master, that can learn a lot from also looking at different perspectives and reviewing their games. And it's also how a lot of really good players get better.
Yeah.
And yeah, any role you play, it's important to use your mouse well, and it's important to understand the game well. So if you're working on those two things and you're actively reviewing what's happening in your games, you're well on your way to get better.
All right. And you mentioned like playing the game from different perspectives, and you played the LEC as a support. Did you play different roles before then as well?
I think I've always played every role up until I was master tier on all of them. So I would always just play a different role, and I'd be like, hey, maybe I'm more talented on this one. And I would play that role for like a month or two, and then I would suddenly change and learn everything about a different role. And I think that helped me a lot in understanding the game as a whole. And I think then I realized that me knowing so much about every position was just the best for playing support, because a lot of players that play support didn't understand every role very well, and so I felt like I would have an advantage. And so, yeah, I played
Right.
everything.
And if you could describe your role then within the team, how would you describe it? Were you then the shot caller or?
I wouldn't say I was so much of a leader. In some teams, especially when I was playing ERL, I was a bit more of a leader, I would say. But I think when you're playing the game at a high level, people just need to understand what they need to be doing on the map, and you can't shot call everything. The game is just too dynamic for that at a high level. You can say little things, but I wouldn't consider it like shot calling. But I was definitely someone that would be very vocal in reviews and very vocal what like outside to the coach, like what needs to be done, what needs to be moving forward, and also um, I would say very vocal in trying to bring the team forward and saying like, hey, we need to do this, hey, we need to do that, hey, this is going wrong. How are you going to improve it?
Yeah.
And leading the discussions. I would say I do a lot in
All right.
teams.
Cool. Cool. And like if there's one thing you could add to like someone aspiring to a professional career, what would it be? Like, would there be anything more you like to, hey, try to do this or try to look at that, or any tips about how to gather more information about the game you're playing? Like, is it watching YouTube videos? Is it like watching the professional players playing the game, or is it like reading stuff about patch notes or whatever?
I think just try a lot of things. Like try switching a role completely. You need to be a little crazy, I believe. At least that's what worked for me. Is change up your habits sometimes. Don't just grind yourself down in a sort of habit, because that's not what you need to be good at League of Legends. You need to understand the game very well, and sometimes that takes taking a step back and actually thinking more clearly or coming from a different perspective. Or, if you're going to the gym and you have that working out for you and you feel way better physically, suddenly you will
Hmm.
play way less emotional in the game. Basically, have the mental fortitude to sometimes take breaks from the game or to change up what you feel like you should be doing, because that change in your brain, that change um in I would say healthiness of the brain, like how young your brain is, how elastic,
Yeah.
how much you can change. I think that's really important.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks. And if you could like say one more thing, okay, we're wrapping up the podcast right now. We're almost close to an hour. And if you could like one more thing to like we've been talking about a lot about you as a player, your career, the esports scene in general. Some tips for people to start improving their own gameplay. And if you could like add one last thing, what would it be? Like it doesn't have to be like in the things we've been talking about, but just a tip from you.
Um, just remember that it's a game, and the games need to be fun, and games need to be played rather than perfected. And so, yeah, I've seen a lot of people that are aspiring to be professionals break themselves over wanting it too much, and thus getting into habits that would only destroy their chances. And so, remember it's a game. Remember sometimes it's really okay to not play it. Remember just to have fun, and remember to make sure that you do something else if you're no longer having fun, because that is the end goal in the end.
Well, I think that's a good way to end the podcast with these wise words. Um, Henk or Advienne, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure like meeting you in this way, having a talk with you about you as a player and your career and your future plans as well. And to people watching or listening, thank you very much for listening again. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hope to see you again next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.